So welcome to my top 10 PS2 games of all time. Yes, I'm doing one of these lists because I really feel, I was looking up at my collection, I'm like, I haven't talked about the PS2 enough, and I was looking at all of my games and I'm like, what are my top 10? What are my top 10 games of all time for this machine? And I want to say, my picks are going to be definitely different than your picks. Let me know what some of your favorite PS2 games are. Let me know down below, because there's no official top 10 list online. This is just one for me that I'm doing for fun about some games I love. Now, a couple of honorable mentions of games that almost got into the list. It just couldn't make it though. And one of those is Rogue Galaxy. This is an extraordinary RPG by Level 5. Beautiful graphics, excellent combat, great music, exploring the galaxy, no pun intended from the name, and fantastic game, and one that I highly recommend. A lot of play time you can put into this. Yes, a game from a different time. RPGs have really evolved since then, and I still think it holds up extraordinarily well. Now, this next game is a game changer on the PS2, an honorable mention as well, and that is Barbie 12 Dancing Princesses right here. An extraordinary game, beautiful graphics, great characters, incredible world building. I mean, I was absolutely hypnotized by this game and I couldn't stop. No, I'm joking, of course not. This game is not on the list. Let's get real here. Okay, another honorable mention, and I swear to God there could be like 10 honorable mentions. Okami by Capcom. A beautiful watercolor painting come to life. You play as a wolf, great combat, excellent gameplay. One that I highly recommend, and it's come out since then in high definition forms, a big recommendation. But when this came out originally on PS2, I was completely taken back by it. A beautiful game. Okay, on to the official top 10 list here. And this is exciting. A lot of these games I've really wanted to come in and talk about. One of them I don't think I've ever talked about on the show. I can't believe it, in 14 years doing the show, never talked about this game. This was an introduction to me of a series that I'd never played. I'd never played this, but I saw some game trailers online and I'm like, I'll give it a chance. Oh my God, this game changed my life. Grand Theft Auto Vice City. This game was extraordinary, and the amount of playtime I put into it, sometimes just driving around, listening to that great 80s music, and that's what did it for me with this game. It was in the 80s and I love the aesthetic of that. But I love the world. Oh my God, the exploration and all of the things that you could do in it. I'd never played a game that was like this, that was open world like this. And it's funny, I became a big seller of this game. You're like, what? Because I'd be playing this game all the time, and I'd have friends come over that were like me. They'd never played Grand Theft Auto. They saw the game playing at my house. Some of them left and went and ordered a PS2 and a copy of the game just to experience it, because it was that big of a deal. And I mean, racing around the city, all the things you can do, running over people, driving on the beach. I mean, I couldn't believe that you could do all of these things in a video game. And I was taken back, and it made me become a Grand Theft Auto fan of the series. But it all started with Vice City, and I'd love to see a return to Vice City in the future. Okay, the next game I talked about in an episode called Retro versus Reality, and a game that I still think holds up quite well. It's the end of the trilogy. It's an RPG. What made this game so good? That is Xenosaga 3. What made this game so great? Everything. The first two games were really great, very cinematic heavy. I'll talk about those in a future episode as well. But the third game got it really right. The cinemas were the perfect length. The gameplay was really fleshed out. The combat was fast. You were in and out of the combat really quick. Excellent music, and building on the trilogy of Cosmos, our main character here, and we were getting a resolution to everything, and it's a really good storyline. I mean, I think the Xenosaga series in general has long been forgotten about now. It's all about the Xenoblade Chronicles series, but Xenosaga really has a place in history, and the third game really is the best of that three, and one that's a top tier RPG on the PS2, I believe. Now, my next pick, a lot of you will not agree with, but a lot of you will be like, really? You're putting that on the list? And I gotta say, yes, it's on the list, and I get a small tear thinking about the first time I played it. And I was like a lot of you guys out there thinking, at first when this game was announced, and I saw the visuals, and I'm like, Disney with Squaresoft? I don't know, it's weird. It was a weird concept. And then I played the game, and I was won over by the charm, and I loved the graphics. I loved revisiting Disney characters with these brand new characters created for Kingdom Hearts. Yes, and Kingdom Hearts, I played all the games since, but for some reason, the first game has a certain magic for me that all the rest, all the rest do really well as well. But this first game, there's some magic in it. It was a formula that shouldn't have worked, but did work and was really fun. And yeah, I mean, playing as Disney characters and walking around Disney worlds, I was sold, and I thought the world building, the things that they did with the gameplay, a lot of fun. Sora and his friends going on this adventure. I was sold, and I tell you, I still remember playing this game and having a small tear in my eye, thinking, this is really, really fun, and one that I really recommend. I really like the original Kingdom Hearts. Great game. Okay, this game had a little bit of hype behind it, and I didn't know what to think about it. I didn't know if I was going to like it. And let me be honest with you, with this, that I don't particularly love the gameplay. I find it very frustrating at times. It's not as responsive and great controlling as I would like. But that can't take away from the impact this game had when it first came out, and that is Shadow of the Colossus. I mean, it was extraordinary. I remember being in the shrine and jumping on your horse and you're running around this empty world. The world was empty, and I'm like, am I having fun here? And I got my sword and I'm shining it, and it's leading me to the direction I need to go to. And I remember that first night going through the canyon and getting up, going up all the rocks and up the side of the mountain and being frustrated because the controls are really kind of annoying at times. But getting to the top and walking out, and I'm getting shivers talking about it, seeing the Colossi right there, the first one, and when it turns and looks at you for the first time, I wanted to scream like a little girl and run away and say, I can't even begin to imagine how I'm supposed to take this thing out. And it took a while to figure it out, but the secret of this game is in taking out the Colossi, finding them, taking them out, and there's a great amount of self-satisfaction doing that, and that's what the game is really about. But man, the size of these things on the screen was extraordinary at the time. You have to understand, on the PS2 at the time, you'd never seen anything like it, and that's why this is definitely in my top 10 for what it was able to do at the time on the PS2. Okay, this next one is not a surprise for me because I'm a huge Tony Hawk fan. I love Tony Hawk. I love that era of skateboarding. I love the games. Love the games to death. So when this game got released, and I gotta say, Rob bought this for me as a present one year for my birthday. I always want to thank him for this. And I got the game off him, and I started to play it, and I'm gonna get into it. Tony Hawk Underground, right here. What makes this game so incredible? It's just another Tony Hawk game, right? Yes and no. What this game did so amazing was it puts you in the role of the skateboarder. So you could even create your own character, which I did, which is based on John from the 90s with the bandana and the sunglasses, really thin and gaunt looking. That was me skateboarding back then. And just being able to bring yourself into the world, and you're living in the world as a skateboarder on a day-to-day basis. And I really, really love this game. I played the living crap out of it, trying to get better at it every single day, all the different moves and all that. But it was about exploring. And that's what was cool, is that you got to explore the city and be your own character. And I was making this list, and I was looking at all these games, and there's games that people would say, oh, they're better than this. But it was my personal enjoyment with the game that raised this into my top 10 list. And Tony Hawk's Underground, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that feeling of making my character and skateboarding around the world. I thought it was just so awesome. This had to be on the list. This is a bona fide, absolute PS2 classic. And I first rented it back in the day, and I was like, whoa. And you know, there's no series that says Sony like the God of War series. And the first God of War that I played was unbelievable. I mean, it was so extraordinary. Playing as Kratos, going through the levels, just fighting wave after wave of enemies, but it was the animation, it was all of that, it was the level building, and just extraordinary bosses, and the way that you take the bosses out. I was hypnotized by this game, and up there is one of the best action games on the PS2, and of course the God of War series has evolved over time and obviously gotten a heck of a lot better, and you look at the graphics of these and you're like, well, isn't that novel? But it really was novel at the time, and it was really pushing the boundaries of action games, and action games on the PS2, and God of War was an extraordinary attempt, and they knocked it out of the park, and just, as I say, the bosses, the level building, the enemies, really a lot of fun, and extraordinary music, and really an epic game. And I gotta say, this top 10 list is not in any order, I'm just kind of going through these games. And of course, there's gotta be the RPGs on the machine that drew me in, and this is an interesting one because it's an RPG that I attempted to go through twice. I got 25 hours in both times and quit, and we finally finished it a few years ago, and that is Final Fantasy XII. Yes, a game that kind of split the audience a little bit. Final Fantasy X did quite a bit, but Final Fantasy XII really did. Final Fantasy XIII really did as well, because they were doing a lot of different things with this game. And I wanted to say the one thing that I really love about the game is the overall look of it. The world building on this, the closest thing I can say is it was like Star Wars. It really was Star Wars for Final Fantasy in its epic nature of the world that they were creating and all of the characters and the ships they made. I thought it was awesome, and I had to grab the art book on it back in the day. I just thought it was amazing. And then you start playing the game, and even for me, I was like, whoa, this is really weird. It's like an MMO that you'd lock on the characters, lines would show up, drawing you to that enemy. Your characters would auto-fight. You'd set that for the individual characters. You had like macros. And I was like, what? And 25 hours in, I'm like, no, it's not for me. And then I attempted again. I'm like, no, not for me. And then we attempted it again on the high definition remaster. And I know not everybody feels this way, but Final Fantasy XII is extraordinary, and it's a game that I really like, and I understand if you got turned off by it. I did twice, but I kept coming back to it because I knew there was something about it that I had to experience, and I'm glad that I did. I mean, me and my wife played this game and we loved it like so very, very much, and I high recommendation, if you haven't played it, play the high definition remasters, try to make it past the 25-hour mark twice, and then maybe you'll like it. Okay, this is crazy, because we knew we were going to get to this point where I'm going to show the next game that's in the top 10 list, and it nearly made it. It deserves to be here, that's why I'm showing it. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. One of the biggest, most hyped PS2 games in history. And is it a great game? Absolutely. Oh my god, yeah. I loved this game when it came out. I was waiting. I bought a PS2 for this game. That's how much I was looking forward to it, and it delivered, absolutely. But is it in the top 10 list? It kind of got nudged out by its big brother, the game that came out next, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. This game is in my top 10 games of all time, and I didn't know it at the time. I thought, oh, this is going to be kind of interesting to get into. First of all, what I like is it's a return of Snake. You know, no more Raiden. We got Snake is back in a different time period in the Cold War. And what I like here is it was all about surviving the elements. So you would eat snakes, hence the title Snake Eater, live off the environment. It was also the camouflage, making yourself become a chameleon in the forests away from the enemies and picking the kind of camouflage that would work for a certain kind of mission. And it's not only that, it's the storyline, it's the boss characters, it's the eeriness, and there's a lot of meaning that I got from this game for the character. and it's really story heavy, like all of them, right? All the Metal Gears are. But this one really rang true for me, and I really bought what they were selling. And I think this game still holds up really well. I'd love a really great remaster, not even a remaster, a remake, because we've had a bit of a high definition remaster over the years, but a complete remake of Metal Gear Solid 3. What do you guys think of the game? I absolutely adore this game. I loved every second of it. It really, really worked for me. Okay, we're into the RPG land once again with a couple of big RPGs. We're down to my last two in my top 10 list. And again, this game, when I played it at the time, I liked it, but I didn't love it. There was a lot of things I didn't like. I didn't like that there was no world map. There was a world map, but there was dots on it. I wasn't a big fan of that. I didn't even like the main character. I mean, I didn't. It's Final Fantasy X. I just got to show it. It's Final Fantasy X. But there was a lot that was done right, and it's one of those games I've talked about over the years that it's kind of like one of those things where you throw a watch into the sand and it's worthless at the time. Give it 100 years, it becomes priceless. And that's what this game is. This game is like a fine wine. It's gotten better over time. And the storyline is there, the characters are there, the world is there, the combat. We live in a time now of a lot of action RPG combat. And you play this and you're like, yeah, turn-based, man. I like my turn-based. And I think that's what's happening now. The more games are getting more action-oriented, the more it takes me back to how turn-based combat is my love. And I absolutely adore it in this game. And I like the story. I like Jet. I like Yuna's journey that she's on. I like the music. I have the CD soundtrack, and I still, even last night, I was listening to the soundtrack before bed, and not in preparation for the video, just because it's that. And to me, this is a super classic Final Fantasy for the ages, and one that I adore, and one that there is nostalgia there. There is, and it's getting more beautiful by the years, and as every year goes by for Final Fantasy X. I mean, what an extraordinary game, and one that I really, really love. Okay, last but not least, I'd actually say this is probably up there, probably is my number one favorite PS2 game, and I originally played the demo disc for it here, and I got the demo disc right there for Dragon Quest VIII. I was always a Dragon Quest fan, and then they were turning their sights from the PS1 to the PS2, and I liked Dragon Quest VII, but it was kind of lacking in the graphics a little bit and all of that. It was lacking a little bit. And then I saw what they had cooking, and they had Level 5 involved, who did Rogue Galaxy. I was like, oh my god, they're helping make the game? And I'm telling you, Dragon Quest VIII is up there as one of the best Dragon Quest games as well. It's nice. It's just a coincidence. It's my favorite on the PS2, but it's also one of my favorite Dragon Quest games of all time. It is my wife's. My wife absolutely adores this game. We both do. What is it about the game that is so good? It is, finally, the game has gone into full 3D, and they did it right, where the sense of exploration is there. And that's what I like. And I also like it. There's a bit of freedom where you may go off the beaten path and you'll get destroyed by enemies because you're not supposed to be there. And it gives you that thing where you go like, oh, I've got to go level up. I got to go level up and get better equipment. And then you do, and then you're able to beat those enemies and get past that point. And that's a great feeling, and that's one of the things that got my wife addicted to the Dragon Quest series, was that sense of addiction, of making your characters get stronger and getting stronger in the world and letting you explore more. And it's classic Dragon Quest as well. The combat is there, full 3D, which I like, but it's turn-based, right? I love the turn-based combat. I keep saying that, but we are going away from it, so it's making me appreciate it even more. But it is the characters. I love the character designs on this game, and I still think this is probably peak Akira Toriyama designs. 7 were okay, I like them. 6 were great. 8 was an absolute return, and especially the main characters wearing bandana. At the time I was wearing bandana, I'm like, I relate to this guy. But beautiful music, sweeping score, fantastic world building, and just the anime aesthetic on there. It is the perfect Dragon Quest game. And every time they do a Dragon Quest conference or something like that, talking about their newest games, I'm always like, wait a second, are they going to show a remake of this game? And I'm telling you, I think in time we'll get a remake of 8 because it's that much of a classic, and I think that many people love it. What do you guys think of Dragon Quest 8? Up there is one of the most beautiful, fantastic RPGs on the PS2, and just an overall absolutely stellar Dragon Quest game. And so, guys, I've come to the end. I will ask you, what are your favorite PS2 games on the system? Let me know down below. I had a really great amount of fun talking about all these great PS2 games and reliving those amazing nostalgic memories for a time on the PS2 back in the day. Crazy how far we've come, that's for sure. So anyways, guys, until next time.